Before starting, I'd like to make an important announcement, one I'm sure you won't agree with me on. But something we can start by agreeing on is that what I do with my cut content videos is basically narrate the things that were known in all the novels at the time the episode in question was published. That is to say, if episode 1 of the anime was released, I narrate everything that happened not only in that episode but also in the side stories that take place during that same time frame. Why am I saying all this? Because in my last cut content episode, I talked about Alderbron's side stories from Arc 6. These side stories I narrated and cited regarding Alderbron dying are actually stories that came out at the same time the events of Season 4 were being narrated in the main novel. In other words, a novel reader, while reading Subaru's adventures at the Watchtower, already knew about Alderbron's power. I only tried to emulate everything a novel reader should know at that point in the story, and honestly, I don't feel it's fair that people who don't have this context call me out for bringing them the stories exactly as a novel reader experienced them at the time. I had considered including some of the comments I receive on my social media, but I'd rather not start a witch hunt, and I prefer to just mention the problem without pointing fingers. However, what I do consider my fault is that sometimes I get overexcited and accidentally drop spoilers in unrelated shorts, or I occasionally forget to tell the editor that certain narrations should have a spoiler tag. I've apologized for those few occasions when they happened, setting that matter aside. Fortunately, today there is no one to give a shout out to, so I just want to thank Samuel, who recently donated via PayPal for the EX1 video. Thank you very much. Having said that and apologizing once more for the long intro, let's get started. All the cut content from episode 5 of the 4th season of Re:Zero. After solving the riddle, Shala makes an interesting comment. According to her, her master Flugel was not a self-deprecating person. This was after seeing how Subaru belittles himself. This detail about Flugel is interesting because, while we always compare Subaru to him, or say he is him, it's curious to know that Flugel apparently doesn't share Subaru's low self-esteem. Then Shaula drops a comment about Reed, mentioning how twisted his personality is, which leads everyone to think that the members from 400 years ago must have had twisted personalities. This is, once again, curious because we currently know more about the group from 400 years ago and can confirm Shaula was right in her description. Among other omitted things, Betty felt strangely comfortable in the library because, according to her, she had good memories of that place, especially the day she allied with Subaru. When they tried to find out what the books were about, the group lost hope when not even Subaru knew what those objects were. Subaru lost hope even more when he asked Aridna if she had any clues, considering she knew more as a creation of the witch. This leads to Typhon's past, which was almost entirely animated and helps explain why the witch had such an extreme personality. Basically, she handed out the same punishment to people if they felt even a slight degree of guilt inside, which is illogical since not all crimes deserve the same punishment. Something the anime perhaps didn't portray clearly was the father's imprudence. He genuinely wanted to teach justice to his daughter, but did so at a very young age, before Typhon had developed a better scale of values and morals. And obviously, it all went wrong. Something separate from this that really catches my attention is how Subaru only saw a part of Typhon's life. Believe me, this rule of only seeing a portion won't always be the case, as we'll see in what follows. I know the novel and anime clarify that Subaru only saw a part, but to this day, I'm still curious as to why Subaru only saw a part, and not the entire life of the little witch. I imagine Teppei just didn't want Subaru to have access to information from 400 years ago so soon. Or perhaps it can be explained when his exact connection to Flugel is revealed. But we are a long way from that, and besides, I'm not that optimistic. After Julius's revelation about Balaroy, something interesting was omitted that helps provide more context for Season 5 of Re:Zero. Since it's not important for Season 4, they only gave it a brief mention. But if you're here, it's because you want to know all the details. Honestly, rereading this excerpt about Balaroy surprised me quite a bit because his story is discussed in more depth in the next season. Since I know what's going to be revealed later about him, I can tell you for sure that this moment is impactful for Julius, not just because of remembering the person he killed, but because after observing his life by reading his Book of the Dead, he better understood the motivations Balaroy had when facing him. In short, it's because I already know Balaroy's story, which is revealed later, that I find new meaning in this part. You might not understand it yet, but I'd just ask you to watch this part again after the anime covers Balaroy's story. Maybe then you'll understand my current excitement. I know I just bombarded you with information, but don't worry, I'll make it more digestible now. You see, in 2015, while the web novel was narrating the events at the Watchtower, Teppei published the prequel story you see on the screen. It narrated a diplomatic trip that Miklotov, Bordeaux, Felix, Reinhard, and Julius made to the Empire. It's there where, for certain reasons, Reinhard apparently ends up attacking innocent soldiers, and Julius is forced to fight Balaroy, resulting in an interesting battle. Eventually, Julius would have to kill him, and that's how it connects to the mention of Julius in the anime today. But since the anime only showed the mention of Balaroy, they ended up omitting world-building lore regarding Lugunica surrounding this character's nation and other little things, lore that I will now show you in detail.
While Subaru watched the scene intently, Julius began to recount the history with a painful deliberation, like someone picking at a scab on a wound that hasn't finished healing. He explained Balaroy Temaglyph's identity within the context of the Wallachian Empire, a nation famous for its ruthless meritocracy, where the warrior elite was comprised of the 9 divine generals. Subaru, for his part, recognized that it was a high-impact title and admitted that the naming sense in that country was highly appealing to him. Julius continued describing the magnitude of these generals' strength, asserting that each one was a warrior without equal. According to his estimation, the Wallachian Empire possessed military power comparable to that of the Kingdom of Lugunica, and he even suggested it might be superior. He pointed out that if one were to set aside the covenant with the divine dragon and the existence of Reinhard, the kingdom would have serious difficulty facing the generals in an open conflict. At these words, Subaru scratched his cheek and tucked that information away in a corner of his mind, realizing how little he knew about external geopolitics while wondering why Julius immediately thought in terms of war. With it confirmed that Balaroy belonged to the past, Julius admitted with a somber expression that the general had passed away. He described him as a man of exceptional strength and a master worthy of all respect, finally confessing with an expression weighed down by regret that it was he himself who had taken his life. Anastasia reacted with genuine surprise at the revelation that Julius had killed a foreign general, causing him to lower his gaze in sadness. It was evident to him that Anastasia didn't remember hearing that story before his existence was erased from everyone's memory or before Eridna took her place. To the question of whether the assassination of a high-ranking officer wouldn't trigger a war given the poor relationship between the two nations, Julius nodded with a certain relief at the honesty of the question. He explained that it was all the result of an extremely tangled situation in which Reinhard and Ferris also intervened. According to his account, Balaroy was planning a coup d'etat in the Empire, and Julius found himself in the middle of the conflict during a stay in Wallachia. When Subaru questioned Reinhard's presence due to the restrictions on his person by the law that bears his name, the Reinhard Law, Julius clarified that he was granted a special permit at the request of the Wallachian Emperor. However, he couldn't help but point out how inappropriate Subaru's choice of words was when he said Reinhard had been exported. The latter defended himself by suggesting that smuggling would have been more precise, reflecting on how terrifying Reinhard's power was for any official border. Julius remembered the duel against Balaroy as a contest so closely fought that a single misstep would have reversed the roles of victor and vanquished. He stated that the general's loss was deeply felt, despite the failure of the coup. Subaru, however, questioned the act of putting someone on a pedestal who sought to subvert order, though Julius firmly argued that, after crossing swords with him, he was certain Balaroy was not acting out of personal gain. Tilting his head, Subaru suggested that if Balaroy were a true warrior, he probably wouldn't be happy being the subject of so many excuses and nuances from the one who defeated him. He suggested the general would prefer his victor to simply be proud of the victory. In a lighter tone, Subaru added that if Julius had lost that day, he himself would have been spared the humiliation of being turned into a punching bag at the start of the royal selection. To which Julius replied with a faint smile that, in such a case, Reinhard would have been the one in charge of teaching him that lesson on the training grounds. Regaining his seriousness, Julius apologized for the digression and explained that the encounter was an event forbidden to be discussed in public and a difficult memory to bear. Subaru and Emilia immediately agreed to keep the secret. Based on this explanation, Beatrice concluded that the books of the dead allowed the reader to experience the lives of people they had known in life. Subaru agreed, noting that he had experienced the witch's memories, while Julius did the same with the general. The mention of his contact with the witch alarmed Anastasia, who expressed her distaste for such ties and questioned if Subaru was involved with the witch cult. Subaru tried to reassure her by shrugging and assuring her that he feared them too, joking that lately he was worried about being too simple a person for such depths. At his response, Emilia, Beatrice and Julius shared a look of discomfort, as if they had tasted something bitter.
And that's the end of today's first part. In the conversation with Meili, the anime left out a mention of how she finds it strange that Subaru is only now asking about the details of her past after having known her for a year. Among the things omitted is a detail where Subaru says that, until now, he always saw her as just a kid who liked stuffed animals. But by far, what caught Subaru's attention most in this moment was Meili telling him that even she is able to see how much everyone else exerts themselves for him and Emilia. Only then would she begin to tell him about how her life as an assassin started, just as we saw in the anime. One thing I feel the anime didn't portray well was the part where Meili denies being interested in looking for anyone's book. In the novel, she stresses this point twice, making that line of dialogue feel rather strange. Afterward, Emilia would show up and Meili would accuse Subaru of flirting with her. Now, what I'm about to say isn't a spoiler, but it really catches my attention how the series hasn't followed up on the subplot of Meili's parents. In the third season, when Dinas appeared, it was revealed that he carries the guilt of not being able to protect his wife and daughter. Up to this point, it sounds like any random character's backstory, but it's revealed that his daughter was named Meili. The most curious part is that in side stories, it's revealed that Dinas was forced to leave his homeland because the Great Serpent attacked his birthplace. Could it be that Dinas thought his daughter died in the attack and that's why he thinks his daughter Meili is dead? Whatever the case, I hope the author picks that subplot back up someday. Before Shaula revealed that she would kill them if they left the tower, the group was discussing the possibility of bringing more people from the kingdom to study the tower. That's why they finally called Shaula to consult her on certain things. And it's there that she would tell them that harsh rule I mentioned a moment ago. After Shaula's revelation, not much else was omitted. Just some observations from Subaru regarding the unusual friendship between Shaula and Meili. This is an indicator of something I revealed in the comments of my last video. Finally, it seems Betty was being affected by the miasma. At least that's what Subaru deduces when he sees her acting distant and cold for a moment. Honestly, this feels weird to me since I don't remember any other mention of Betty being affected later on. I imagine the author forgot and scrapped this subplot. Anyway, after that, Emilia would find the stairs, and that's where we connect back with the anime. Overall, the most interesting thing omitted before going up the stairs is how the members delve into the idea that the tower was playing with their perception, making it so they couldn't find these stairs until they solved the monolith's trial. Another interesting part omitted was Subaru talking a bit about Flugel's knowledge and the fact that, because the name is German, he might soon lose the chance to solve the trials if they started referencing German stories. It's also mentioned that Flugel means wings. Do with that information what you will. And so he proceeded to run all the way up. Surprisingly, almost nothing was omitted regarding Reed's dialogue. Something that was left out, though I understand why, were some very raunchy comments he made about the girls. I would have liked them to stay in just to see the reaction it would have caused on social media, but even with the omission, you still get that Reed is a pervert. And that was everything regarding the episode in general. I feel like not many things were left out, and if I didn't mention some things, believe me, they were very, very irrelevant details. I'm confident that I've covered everything vital about episode 5 in depth. But far from the Watchtower, other events are also taking place. Events that I'm narrating in my shorts. The shorts I'm about to show you are ones I haven't uploaded to the main channel yet, so I hope you enjoy them. On Alderbron's side, at this moment, he has already resigned himself to the fact that he won't be able to stop Priscilla from heading to the Empire. And once that's clear, the following happens. So this is the weakness of being in love, Alderbron muttered to himself as he crossed the border with his allies. After dying 1,000 times trying to convince Priscilla, Al finally accepted that her fate was set in stone. If he couldn't prevent his lady from traveling to the Empire to find out who sent assassins after her, he would simply make sure her path was cleared. They were traveling toward the port city of Limpolton. Inside the carriage, Schult was boasting about his studies on the peace between Lugunica and the Empire, but he was rudely interrupted by Heinkel, who called his story a mere fairy tale. Schult defended himself, saying that if he believed in that story, it was only because he was still a child. To this, Heinkel replied that he was right. But if he continued to look and act like a child, some enemy might use him as a weak point against his lady Priscilla. Alderbron was surprised. He was ready to jump in and call Heinkel out for his comments, but the old man actually had a point. He compared this brief flash of humanity from Heinkel to a thug helping a stray kitten. Priscilla overheard him and said he was talking nonsense. Alderbron asked why she didn't ask him more about the odd expressions he used from time to time, to which she replied that after spending so much time with him, she already knew when he was talking nonsense and when he was saying something interesting. She then added that they would soon reach the port and enter via the river from there, noting that they couldn't enter through the borders because of the commotion it would cause, which would have surely been a heavy burden for Alderbron. Al thought about how unnecessary this detour was and how much he didn't want to do it. Noticing his expression, Priscilla asked him what was with that face. Al told her he was wondering if what he was feeling was a weakness from being in love. The princess ignored his comment. Then Al remembered how, a few days ago, Yai had told him the same phrase. The ninja told him it was because of that weakness that Al didn't force Priscilla or bend her to his will. After all, he had already done so with Yae. Alderbron wanted to deny the accusation, but he couldn't. After it was revealed that Yae could not return to the Empire due to a curse, Alderbron left her at Priscilla's mansion to wait for orders while Yae repeated his new weakness to him, the weakness of being in love. Back in the present, Alderbron and his group crossed the border by boat, but then some river pirates raided the vessel. Because of the hostages, Alderbron didn't want to fight, but Heinkel was on the verge of doing so. Al told him to wait until they found an opportunity, or else Schult would get hurt. Surprisingly, Heinkel agreed to behave for the boy's sake. Alderbron wondered how Heinkel could be so considerate of the little one. When the pirates searched Priscilla's cabin, Alderbron saw his princess whisper something into one of their ears. They instantly forced all the hostages onto another boat, claiming they would hijack the main ship to negotiate the lady's ransom with her family. Once the hostages were gone, Al and Heinkel prepared to fight, but the pirates dropped their weapons and knelt, revealing they had come at the orders of an old contact of Priscilla's, who had agreed to stage the scene so they could cross the border. In this way, Priscilla reached the Empire and would eventually cross paths with Subaru. But that's a story you don't know yet. Remember that I've started a cut content series on the channel. This would be the last time we hear from Alderbron until he crosses paths with the protagonist again in the future. But as I always say in my shorts, that's a story you don't know yet. Before moving on with the video, I'd like to take a moment to remind you that I'll soon be debuting a new video format on the channel, a series where I'll cover the biography of every ReZero character. These biographies won't just include what was shown in the anime, but every story from the novels they appear in. For now, I'm starting with Elsa Granhirt. I'm already working on a video narrating her entire life, and believe me, the anime only showed about 40% of everything she went through. I'd ask that when the video drops, you show it some support so I can stay motivated to keep bringing you more biographies of other characters. Getting back to today's topic, another thing happening in parallel is Garfield's adventures in Pristella. Lately, Garfield has been fighting against the Guardians of Typhon the Witch's temple, and believe me, there will soon be a massive revelation regarding the witch. But for now, I'll leave you with the video that continues the tale of Garfield's adventures. While Subaru was solving a simple riddle that any of us could figure out, Garfield discovered the remnants of a lost civilization from 400 years ago, one that uses Japanese. After defeating a misshapen creature in the depths of Pristella's temple, Garfield, Ricardo, Ezzo, and Liliana barely had time to catch their breath. That thing was an aberration with several snakeheads fighting to control a single body with multiple limbs, a grotesque mass that only fell when Ezzo reduced it to ashes. Ezzo explained that it didn't seem like a simple beast, but rather an unnaturally created life form. As he seemed keen on studying it, Liliana reminded him of their true objective, finding the witch's remains hidden in that place. The problem was moving forward. There was no turning back, and going ahead meant facing more guardians. Garfield could already smell that they weren't alone. Ezzo decided to call these strange creatures guardians, temple protectors created to prevent any intruder from reaching the end, and he wasn't wrong. As soon as they moved forward, the traps began. Hidden pits, projectiles, liquids capable of dissolving anything, and curse techniques. Furthermore, each guardian was worse than the last. Deformed rats, monsters halfway between an insect and a dog, and masses without any recognizable shape. They pushed forward like this for over 6 hours, surviving thanks to Garfield's strength, Ricardo's brutality, Ezzo's magic, and Liliana's songs, until the 5th guardian appeared, a stone giant. Ricardo was the one who brought it down. After shattering its arm, he ran up its body and drove the hook of his prosthetic arm into its head. The giant fell to its knees and finally collapsed. Everyone hoped that would be the end of it, but the temple went on. Exhausted, they wondered how much further they had to go. It was then that Garfield noticed something strange on the wall. Beneath the moss were ancient inscriptions. Ezzo explained it was script from ancient ruins that had been found before and was impossible to decipher. Usually, it was treated as mere scribbles, but Garfield swore he had seen those symbols before, though he couldn't recall where. Liliana mentioned something something unexpected. Those letters looked like a daiku score, a secret code bards used to pass down ancient songs. Ezo was stunned. If those ruins used a similar system, maybe, just maybe, they could be deciphered. That would mean recovering lost knowledge from over 4 centuries ago. But just then, the stone giant started moving again. Despite having lost its head, it was still alive. Its massive fist shot out and struck Garfield from behind, destroying the wall and the inscriptions along with it. Garfield couldn't believe that thing had faked its death without even having a brain. Ezo exploded with rage and swore he hated this enemy even more than Rosewall. At that moment, Garfield remembered where he had seen those letters before, in Subaru's room. He once saw him writing those exact symbols in his diary. He thought it was some weird game, but now it didn't seem like a coincidence. With that doubt stuck in his mind, Garfield threw his fist at the giant once more. Because after so many traps and guardians, they were now just one step away from reaching the room with the witch's remains. But that's a story you don't know yet. Remember that I've started a cut content series on the channel. But that's everything regarding the stories of Subaru's allies. I'm waiting for a new Liliana novel to be released, one that takes place around this time. And once it is, rest assured I'll include it in this series. But let's move on to the next section. The author's tweets. First, there's a comment from the author about Sylphie, who after the events of Arc 5 has become a staunch follower of Emilia. The author wonders how she would react if she found out what her lady is going through right now. Second, the author comments on the way the books avoid being read. It's worth noting that the novel never specifies that this is the security measure the library has to prevent a book from being read by the wrong person. I guess the author is thrilled because the anime made something specific that he never clarified himself. Third, the author mentions that Emilia was thinking of someone when she tried to picture someone with a twisted personality. I thought she was referring to Flugel, but as it turns out, the person she was thinking of was Echidna. Surprisingly, this isn't the only mention of Echidna. Fourth, and what's coming up is a spoiler, so I'd ask you to skip ahead 30 seconds from now if you don't want to be spoiled. It was just recently revealed in the novels that the person who built the library was Echidna, and the author made a comment regarding that. It's interesting to theorize whether Echidna built the library before splitting from Flugel's group or after, but even I don't know that. I only know that at some point in the past they were friends, but went their separate ways because of the method Echidna used to achieve a goal. And in case you're wondering, the method Echidna used was allying herself with Alderbron. But that's all regarding the tweets. Regarding today's break time, nothing really groundbreaking happened. They just adapted a portion of the Julius novel it's based on. While they left out the part where Julius finds out he has a brother and shows us the aftermath of the Pre-Stella incident, I still admit they chose the best part to adapt. The segment where Ricardo trusts him despite having only just met him. Of course, it's not blind trust, but I think Ricardo lays out and backs up the reasoning behind it in today's excerpt. Anyway, if you want more context, I invite you to check out my short. But that's all for today. I hope the author doesn't drop any new chapters for the next few days because I really want to finish the Elsa video. I hope you enjoyed this, and if not, well, too bad.